Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Are you one of those people that puts those four-legged friends' health in front of your own? I have so many clients that will say, I don't want to do that for myself. That's too much work, but I'll spend thousands of dollars on my little pups. I understand. And we're going to get into our little pups and all of our animals and their health today. Welcome to Accelerated Health with Sara Banta, where I cut through the noise and fast track your journey to better health and your pups and other animals. I'm your host, Sara Banta, CEO and founder of Accelerated Health Products and certified by the National Association of Nutritional Professionals. I'm here to share the latest on supplements, wellness hacks, and natural health solutions that actually work. From boosting energy to detoxing to balancing hormones and everything in between, I will help you reach your optimal health and your four-legged friends. I'm super excited to have Dr. Marlene Siegel here. We're going to get into Integrative Veterinary Care. She is a trailblazer in the field of integrative veterinary medicine, transforming how we care for our animal companions. I'm sure it's no different than us, right, Dr. Marlene? How are you today?
Amazing. Thank you for having me on. And I am so excited to bring this information to your audience.
Well, as I mentioned right before we came on, I have two little pups, mini golden doodles, and my family has always been lovers of horses and dogs. And when I was a kid, I did have a cat at one time. Not my favorite, I'm not going to lie, but I love the pups and I cannot imagine my life without them. I've also had to do things with them that, the vaccinations that I don't really want to do. I've had to, get my two little girl pups fixed. I've had to see them go through surgery. I've seen them, overdose on chocolate. Things that we don't want for our puppies. I tried to feed them what I would eat, what I would feed my children, but they're facing the same things us people are facing. The toxins, the fluoride in the water, the air pollution, the toxins in the medicines, the antibiotics that they might have to be exposed to. So they're no different than us. So I'm so aligned with you, just in a different world, and I can't wait to get into it. I think we should start with what was the aha moment for you in going the more integrative route?
So like most of us, we make that pivot or that life change when there's some crisis that happens in our life. And my youngest daughter we were doing show horses, and my youngest daughter had an accident with her horse in the arena, and the horse literally saved her life. The horse had reared into the air, and no one had taught my daughter, if your horse rears, bail off to the side, because the number one cause of a rider's death is a horse falling over and crushing their rider. So we had a 50-pound child and a 2,000-pound horse, and instead of bailing off, she was trying not to fall off. So she was literally dangling from the reins in this horse's mouth a bit, pulling her over. And she was a fulcrum of 50 pounds pulling the horse over backwards. So when they hit the ground, you couldn't see space between them. But what the horse had done just before going over, imagine she's up on her hind legs, she's being pulled backwards, and somehow she had the presence to squat on her left hind leg and push herself as hard as she could, literally to the right. And my daughter was falling to the left. When they hit the ground, you couldn't see space between them. I jumped over the railing and I was running towards my daughter. Within a couple seconds, the horse caught her breath and got back up, but my daughter was on the ground, not moving. When I got there, by the grace of God, she was not injured. She was very embarrassed because to her, all she knew was, I didn't want to fall off. And so she was very embarrassed that in front of everybody, she fell off her horse. Yeah. Well, thank God she wasn't hurt. But back home, there was another incident that happened while I was riding. My other daughter was riding, and she was still riding our horse, Lily. And something else happened, and I heard a commotion, and I look over, and I see the trainer yanking my daughter off the horse and then jamming the reins in this horse's mouth. And I was like, what happened? And she said, well, the same thing that was happening in the arena, she was doing it again. And she thought she was spooking at something. Well, what was happening was she was having neck spasms. And the third time it happened, I was standing right next to the horse, and I could see this literally look like a scissor going up her shoulder, up her neck, and just like this. And so I had equine veterinarians come out and look at her. They didn't know what was wrong. They said that what they could tell me was, number one, she would never be safe to be shown again. And I could retire her, or I could put her out to a pasture as a retirement, or I could put her down. And that horse had saved my daughter's life. So something inside of me was like, oh, heck no. I'm going to fix that horse. She saved my daughter's life. That's her best friend. And they're going to keep going. So I started looking for alternatives that didn't exist in the veterinary world. And we're talking, this is quite some years ago, over 25 years ago. So I started looking into integrative functional medicine on the human side, which was just birthing at that time. So I'm absorbing every webinar, every course. I think that's kind of funny because sort of like Siri listens to you and then you see the ad coming up. So here I am asking the universe for alternatives. Where can I go? Where can I get information? And then I start being introduced to functional medicine on the human side, which was kind of funny. So I'm calling all these people up that I'm listening to on these webinars, and they're going, I'm sorry, I don't do animals. I just do people. And I would have to say, it's okay. You tell me what you would do for a person. I'll figure out how to extrapolate it to the animal. And so that's what I started doing. And then the first thing I did is I had my own personal chiropractor who ironically had become certified in doing animal chiropractics a couple years earlier. And he kept saying to me, oh, you got to learn to do this. It's really amazing. And I was like, oh, Dan, talk to the hand. I was so busy. I'm homeschooling 2 daughters, running a busy practice. I just didn't think I could put anything else on my plate. But now all of a sudden I had to do this. And so I became certified in chiropractic work, and then I did acupuncture, and then I got into different pieces of equipment like laser and, piece by piece, and everything I learned, I started incorporating into my small animal practice. So end of story, everybody. That little duo who I was told would never show again and I should put the horse down went on to win the United States Youth National Championship, the most prestigious horse show in the entire United States 5 months later.
Wow.
So, yeah. And Lily was with me up until just a few months ago. We finally had to say goodbye. But she had been thriving all this time. Of course, she was retired and didn't have to work hard anymore. She just got to be a yard ornament. But yeah, what a great movement for me. It was like she was my angelic messenger taking me into the integrative world. And because I made a promise to myself, this is the key here. I made a promise that I would never, ever say to a pet parent, there's nothing more that can be done.
Yeah.
And because I made that promise, I had to make sure my toolkit was big enough to meet that comment. I had to come up to that speed. And so even to this day, I am always looking for integrative things to add into my practice. And this week, we are actually treating the very first dog in the United States who will receive exosomes that are combined with something called ICG, indocyanogreen. And then we photoactivate that with laser lights, and we add folic acid to also do sonotherapy. So we're using sound, radio frequency, and light to penetrate into this tumor after we put this product that will then be absorbed by the tumor, and then we're able to very selectively kill the tumor. It's a dog with carcinoma in the nose.
Wow.
So no one's ever done that in the entire United States. And it's just becoming something on the human side that's being done in Germany. And I work with that German doctor. So we're now starting the experiment and doing this on animals here in the US. So it is an exciting realm to know that there is so much we can do. But the most important thing we can do is start with our foundation. How do we take care of our body, the gut, the terrain, and working with nutrition and environmental factors so that we don't get sick? That is some of the most important things. And yet we want to jump to the sexy stuff. Like, oh, I want to do the fancy schmancy stuff. No, do the basics. Everybody just needs to start with my first principle, which is stop doing the things that are causing the dis-ease. And that's food, water, environment, what we're breathing, what we're putting on and in our skin, and what we're putting in our brain. What are our thoughts? And the EMF. So, if we just start with figuring that part out, so much of our health would improve right there. And you commented in the very beginning, which is, I want to reiterate it because it's such a powerful statement. People will do more for their animals than they will for themselves. This is a true fact. And nobody intentionally wants to hurt their pets. Now we're talking the pet lovers that you and I are, right? Those people never want to intentionally hurt their animals. And yet we're doing things that we unconsciously don't know better. And if I could kind of put you on the wall there for a second, and, you mentioned feeding your animals like you would yourself. And that sounds wonderful because I think you eat very healthy, but they are carnivores. Our cats are obligate carnivores.
No, so you mistook me. I meant feeding yourself a healthy diet, and whatever that healthy diet is for your
good. No, I wanted to clarify that because the way you said it was, I'm going to feed them like I feed my family. And I didn't want people to go away with thinking that they can just feed table food and that would be okay. Good.
No, and I would love to get into the proper diet because there's the kibble and there's the thought, even from the animal lovers saying, oh, just by buying the expensive food, you're only going to save like 2 years of the puppy's life. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how can you have that mindset? And then you have the people that just feed them off the table and thinking they're giving their dog some love. But I wanted to just touch and echo your story about your daughter, because I rode horses when I was younger, and they are looking out for you as much as you're looking out for them. I rode horses and I fell off the horse and I would have been stompled if the horse wasn't looking out for me. I literally was laying on my back on the ground, looking straight up, and the horse had his arms out and I was in between, and he was just looking down at me, waiting for me to patiently get out from underneath her. And she was my best friend when I was younger. And then now my two puppies, very different personalities, but they're so sensitive to you. They care for you. They respond to supplements, and I'll get into that later at the end on the supplements that I give my pups. But also I do a lot of frequency medicine, and I use a machine called the biocharger. Well, my dogs will actually come sit with me as I'm doing a treatment because they feel it. Sure. They're so much more sensitive to things than we are. But back to the diet. It is so important because, like you said, forget the stem cells and the peptides and all of this fun stuff if you're not dealing with the basics. And I tell the people that as well. If you're not sleeping and you're not handling your stress and you're not eating a clean diet and taking, it's not just about what you're taking in, but it's about what you're eliminating.
Yes.
All of the other stuff means nothing. Supplements are supplemental. Right? Yeah. They're supplemental to the foundation. So let's get into the diet and what is proper, because organic vegetables and rice might not be right for your pup.
No, the pet food industry was actually birthed from the waste products of human processing. So we live in a world where we want to monetize everything that we have. And so when we started processing our food, there was a lot of waste products. And so they would take these foods, these rendered foods, and they were not fit for human consumption. And then they would heat it to high temperatures and then of course, now it's nutritionally dead. And then they would add back what they considered to be nutrition. And a lot of it was synthetic because it had to be stable in that kind of a form. And then they extruded it into a kibble and stuck it together. Back in the day was using corn and grains. And then when we started going grain free, because we were seeing all this disease, then they went into substituting the grains for carbohydrates like potato starch and tapioca. But all of that is enzymatically dead. There's no nutrition truly in there except what is added back in. So what I help people to do is go back to our roots of using common sense. I think we've really gone very far away from common sense. How do we know what is a species appropriate diet? What do animals in the wild eat? And we have privy to that because we can watch National Geographic. I grew up with Marlene Perkins, in the wild kingdom. So we watched what animals eat in the wild. We certainly can understand that. And our dogs are carnivores. We call them scavenger carnivores because they have adapted to man's waste a little bit more than cats have. Cats are obligate carnivores. They literally have no dietary requirement for carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. Dogs and cats do not have amylase in their saliva. That's the enzyme that breaks down carbohydrates. Nor do they chew their food. Anybody who's ever watched their healthy pet eat, they just scarf it, gobble it, 1 or 2 bites, and it's down the hatch. They don't chew their food. Well, the reason we are able to eat carbohydrates is because we're supposed to chew our food thoroughly to a pancake batter. And when we do that, we release this amylase in our saliva, which begins the predigestion of carbohydrates. So just right there, we see a massive difference in how they were designed to eat from how we were designed to eat. So in simplistic terms, they were designed to eat the animal that they killed in the state that they killed it in. They got their prebiotic and probiotics from the intestinal tract because after they killed that animal, they would have degutted it. Not pretty to think about, but it's nature. And then they would have pulled the intestines out, tearing some of it, getting that effluent in their mouth. And then they would have searched for the organ meat, which was premier. And then they would have eaten cartilage and bones, and they would have had muscle meat and fat, and the fur was your indigestible fiber. So they got a balanced diet, and this is all assuming that that animal that they killed and ate was out roaming on free-range pastures as well. But over the years, we have become so much more industrialized that the meats that we're feeding our animals and eating ourselves are now raised in feedlots. They're not free-range, grass-fed, grass-finished. So it's a whole different market. Yeah. And why that's important is because carnivores, this is very important, guys. Carnivores get their vitamin D, like a dog, their vitamin D from their protein source. Herbivores get their vitamin D from the sun. So that herbivore has to be in the sun to be able to develop enough vitamin D in their meat so that when the carnivore eats that meat, they actually get sufficient vitamin D. We're omnivores. We do both. We get vitamin D from our protein and we get vitamin D from the sun. And it's just kind of interesting that most people are light deficient. They're not going outside in the full spectrum of sunlight during the day. And they're eating foods that are not raised sustainably. They're not grass-fed, grass-finished. So are we surprised that so many people have vitamin D deficiencies? Mm-hmm. And studies in animals have shown that 85% of dogs eating a kibble diet are vitamin D deficient.
Wow.
That is a university study. So yes, we have massive problems going on in our food supply because we've gotten so far away from sustainable living, sustainable eating, and a species appropriate diet.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So
unpack that one.
Yeah. I talk about the fact that you can't just eat animal protein. Mm-hmm. I say chicken is the dirty bird, the way it's fed, and even organic chicken has been adulterated, and there's amyloid proteins in it that the body can't digest or break down to assimilate into the body. And then you've got the cows, just like you're saying, they're full of, who knows what they're eating. They're not eating their regular diet. So I really try to promote a wild animal protein, bison, elk, venison, lamb, wild fish. And so it goes for our little pups as well, is what you're saying. Are there specific brand names that you like? I mean, is it just a raw food diet? Is that what you're looking for? I mean, there's so many companies out there, and I'll spend what I need to spend on my dogs. And
absolutely,
I do feed them raw food. It's the Primal brand, and maybe that's not even good enough.
So let me define. Of course, I have a raw food company, and when I started, there were 3 raw food companies on the market, and neither one of the other 2 would maintain the quality of their product, which is why I ended up creating my own company. And when I say that, I contacted both companies and I said, would you make a truly species appropriate organic diet with no synthetic vitamins and no fillers and all grass-fed, grass-finished proteins? And both of them said no. In fact, one of them went on to develop a raw coated kibble because the company had been sold, new CEO, and they were just going after market dollars. So what I'm going to describe is my diet that I created, and you want to have that or better. So there needs to be a balance of meat, fat, bone, and organ meat in the diet. And the meat has to be grass-fed, grass-finished, or free range. So if we're talking about birds, we're going to be talking about free range chicken, that they're not fed a genetically modified corn diet. Same thing with the cattle. And it's really hard to find producers that do that. But who produces my product is the largest producer of grass-fed, grass-finished, and free-range meats in the entire United States.
Great.
So very serendipitous how we were put together.
Yeah.
But the second problem that we have is when diets are called complete and balanced, which according to AFCO standards, you have to produce a diet and have it on the claim that it's complete and balanced, which means they have to add in the vitamins, minerals, and fatty acids to balance the diet, because they already knew that our wild food or our homemade foods are going to be deficient, because if the soil is deficient in those minerals, then whoever's eating that is going to be deficient, and that just continues to snowball. So we know our food, because our farming practices are not sustainable, are going to be deficient. So knowing this, they made this standard that you have to add this in. Well, I wasn't going to add synthetic junk into my diet. So I thought, how do I get around that? And so what I did is I separated my macronutrients from my micronutrients. So I separated the meat, fat, bone, and organ meat, which is your macronutrients, which of course has some nutrition in it. It's not devoid. I mean, those cows were out in these beautifully kept green pastures out in Missouri. So they're not sprayed with any hormones or chemicals. They're fed a natural diet. And with all that, we don't know what the quality of the grasses are. So we don't know what they're deficient in, zinc, copper, etc. So the second thing I did is I created an essential nutrient line. And essential nutrients are those nutrients that the body cannot manufacture in sufficient quantities for the body. Then you can look them up online. The dogs are a little bit different than the cats, and they're a little bit different than humans by a few amino acids and a few things. So the essential vitamins, the essential minerals, the essential fatty acids, and the essential amino acids. So that became my core. We sell that separately. And the beauty of that, thank you to the universe for giving me the inspiration, was that we can now dose the nutrition based on that animal's body weight and metabolic needs. Because when you're taking a can of food or even a raw diet from another manufacturer, not like those nutrients are equally dispersed in there. So what if you have a 10-pound Chihuahua versus a 120-pound Great Dane? They're eating the same diet, but different quantities. How do you know how much they're actually getting? And so for me, because I'm dealing with so many animals with chronic degenerative diseases, I had to know that I was feeding therapeutic levels. I couldn't afford deficiencies, because all disease comes from 3 things: deficiencies of essential nutrients, an overload of toxins that the body can't get rid of, usually it's a combination, and mitochondrial dysfunction.
Imagine that. It's the same as us.
I do add a 4th one, which is the emotional component, trapped emotions, but another whole conversation. Let's just stick with the top 3 right now, because if people can dial in those top 3, number 4 is a piece of cake. So understanding that, it's important to know that we are giving the body the things it needs in order to function. So the next area I'd like to get into is, how do we know what we're actually feeding or what these animals are deficient or toxic in? Unless you have another question.
No, that's great.
Okay. So I am a test, don't guess kind of gal. which means that you cannot look at an animal and go, oh, they have mercury toxicity, or they're deficient in selenium or calcium or zinc. You don't look at something and know. You have to test. So guys, if there's anything that you spend your money on for these animals, number one is your diagnostics. Because when you know what you have, you can target and fix it. And then you can actually measure and know that you've improved it. So the things that I test for are nutrient deficiencies. And it's a big list of nutrient deficiencies, from vitamin D, magnesium, B12, copper, calcium, zinc, selenium, yada, 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 yada. So we test for all of those. And then I also test for toxicities, which include glyphosate. I include mycotoxins. It's expensive to test, but it is so important because we test for 5 different species or categories of mycotoxins. And I will tell you, in the time that I've been doing this, I've had one animal, one in all the thousands that I've tested, that had no mycotoxins. All the rest had huge levels of at least 2 or 3 categories.
Wow.
And of course, they're underlying, creating havoc in the metabolic system. Microplastics. That's a brand new area that we've just been partnered with a company that's been doing microplastic testing for humans. Most people don't even know that that's available for themselves. And when I contacted this company, he goes, oh my gosh, I've been thinking about doing animals. And so let's do it. So we just got back our first group. They consider a high number of plastics in people to be 21. And these are actual particles. They're measuring 3 different sizes of particles, from the little nanoparticles into the more quantum particle, more larger particle rather. And 21 is considered an average for humans, which is still a lot. Remember, we weren't born with microplastic in us. We are just like glyphosate. Glyphosate should be 0. Microplastics should be 0. And yet we have now ranges of what is considered acceptable. HE double hockey sticks. No, there is no acceptable level of glyphosate, heavy metals, or microplastics. So knowing that, now we test. Our first 6 samples came back. They were over 42. Remember, humans were 21. So now animals are more than double the toxic amount of plastics that are in their body. More than double.
Wow. That is, I'm speechless.
Yeah.
Because you're not even talking about, you've talked about heavy metals and mycotoxins and the plastics. And then there's the worms and the parasites and the other stuff. And oh my goodness. I mean, this can be overwhelming because it's overwhelming just to take care of us and our children, let alone our pets. So you do the testing, and how are you addressing the detoxification?
So that is my wheelhouse, is actually detoxification. So I detox all 6 organs of elimination: the kidney, the colon, the lungs, the liver, the skin. And I say lymphatics / fascia because the fascia is so important in our world and in our body. So I kind of put them together because lymphatics run through the fascia. So I do things to actually support the fascia. We actually have a program to teach pet parents how to do fascia decompression at home with their hands. They don't need any equipment. They just need to learn the techniques because it is that important. So we use a variety of different things. The first thing we start with is getting our patient in a parasympathetic state. So let me back up a second. We have 2 sides of the autonomic nervous system. The sympathetic side, which is the fight, flight. You can run from danger and it saves your life because you can react. And then we have the parasympathetic side, which is the rest, repair, digest, detoxify, and reproduction side. And when they're in balance, that's a wonderful thing. But when something happens in your environment, you're going to polarize yourself one way or the other. So if a saber-toothed tiger or, God forbid, a robber were to come at you, your sympathetic side needs to come on fast and sharp, and you need to either run hard or fight hard or do something to protect yourself or your family. But we were never designed to leave that sympathetic side up all the time. Imagine a teeter-totter, right? So here's your teeter-totter. All of a sudden, you're high sympathetic tone. But if we stay there all the time, then our parasympathetic side on the other end of the teeter-totter is turned off. So how do we bring it back the other way? Well, in nature, once the lion kills they catch their prey that they were running against the herd. We've all seen the pictures of the herds going crazy and the lion's trying to catch something and it finally either misses or catches something. And then the rest of the herd, just a few feet away, starts to graze again. Like they go back into an alert, but more parasympathetic state. In our modern world, and I don't care almost where you are in the world, we have everything that is telling us that this saber-toothed tiger is still jumping out. It's the sleep deprivation. It's the stress at work. It's the stress of traffic. It's the stress of children. It's the crappy food that we're eating, the sad food, the standard American diet. But it's the standard American day that I'm now describing, where it's stress, stress, stress all the time. Why that's important to our pets is because they entrain to our energy. Mm-hmm. So they look to us and they go, oh my gosh, there must be a danger out there because my pet guardian is on high alert. And so they're on high alert inside. May not look like they're producing more cortisol, which is our stress hormone, but they are. And so, so that's where this whole cycle starts to perpetuate itself. So step number one, we have to learn how to get back into a parasympathetic state. So we do that with technology for the animals because we can't teach them how to do breath work and how to meditate. Now, if you're a pet owner and you are getting really good at that at home, you can do frequency work, you can do sound therapy, you can do breath work, you can get yourself in a parasympathetic state, and your pet will entrain to that as well. So those are great, but it's, our fast-paced world, it's really easy when I can get you in a parasympathetic state in less than 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. So now the body is open to start to heal, and then we take them through a variety of different tools, techniques, and technologies to be able to start that detoxification process. We use halo therapy, which is dry salt therapy for the lungs and for the skin. We use ozone therapy, which covers a multitude of things, and we do it intravenously, rectally. We use ozonides where we can actually breathe it. We use ozone that is infused with glycerin. So it's ozonated glycerin. And so we have that available. We also do hyperbaric oxygen. We do frequency therapy. We do lymphatic therapy using a special machine that has probes on it that produce a microcurrent and inert gases. And we go over the animal's body, opening up the drainage centers for the lymphatic, and then decongest the body and sweep the debris, if you will, into those drainage centers. And then we do lymphatic therapy. In addition to lymphatic therapy, we do the fascia decompression. So I could go on and on. There's so many tools that we have available, many of which our pet parents can actually purchase and do at home as well. So once we become aware of where our deficiencies are and where our toxins are coming in through, as an example with mycotoxins, we know based on the species where most of them are coming through. Is it coming through food, through water, through the air, through the environment? We can tell by the different species. So now you become more aware of how to clean and control that. I'm huge on air filtration at home. We work with a special company. It's on my website. I'm not going to say names, but it's a commercial grade air filtration. It's an air scrubber, but this company made it look sleek and pretty and quiet, which is unlike most air scrubbers. If you've ever had a water intrusion in your home and they bring in those air scrubbers to dry everything, then you understand how loud and obtrusive these things are. So this company, the owner, that was his wheelhouse, was in air quality. And so he designed this so that the homeowner can have that level of air quality. And I'm telling you, it is a game changer. So we have people try to put them throughout the whole house, but at minimum in the room that they're sleeping in. Because one of the areas that we get microplastics from is the air. It comes from the carpet, because the carpet is covered in these microplastic fire retardants. And so every time you scrape around the carpet, you're actually micronizing, you're scraping and debriding some of that and aerosolizing it. The clothes that we wear when we're wearing the polyester and, these synthetics, that is all plastic. And so we're constantly making all this into our air. But if you have these air scrubbers, it's cleaning that. So it's lowering the amount of microplastics that we're breathing in.
Gosh. Like I said, it's just all the things that I love to do for people and my family. And I mean, there's no reason that it would be different for our little four-legged friends. There's some controversial topics that I want to get your take on because I've got
I love controversy.
my groomer who is more integrative natural and my vet who is more balanced. He's not like you, but he's more balanced than the typical. But they promote flea medication, the vaccines, those two things in general, and then antibiotics for an ear infection and that sort of thing. So can you just take us through the pros and when you would use them, or, you know, at what level would you abstain from those things as much as possible? What are alternatives? Because fleas are a real thing. There's also the law, you know, we have to go with state law on some of the vaccinations. So I'm just really curious as to where you are in all of this.
Let's unpack them one by one, because it's kind of like they say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Yeah. Sometimes we have to make choices that are the most ethical and sustainable in the circumstances that we have.
Right.
So we can't just have this blanket, all drugs are bad, because they're not. And we have to be able to, I say, pick your poison. So let's talk about fleas and ticks first. If you live in an area where fleas are a big problem, I'm in Florida. We are flea haven, and we are where all the studies for fleas and ticks happen. They literally, in my region, like near Tampa, Florida, they study this. The universities come down and they do all their flea testing here because we have such a burden in our area. Now you look at the flip side and you see all of the health challenges that animals have from flea allergy dermatitis, from tick-borne diseases. Then you have to weigh your poison. Now, emphatically, if I have somebody that comes to me and go, I don't want to use those are toxins, but they're feeding a kibble diet. Come on, guys. Like, we have to decide on what that toxic load is going to be. And you have to do the safer things to get you through where you're living. If I lived in Arizona, they don't have fleas there. That's, you know, it's not a conversation. And for the most part, they're now getting heartworm disease there, but we're in heartworm capital. So I think we have to be able to mitigate heartworm disease. Now, we use ivermectin. So, you know, I'm using the safest of the products possible. And I don't use anything that has additives or fillers that makes it chewable, because what makes it chewable are all the synthetic garbage that they put in to make it tasty. But if you read those ingredients, it is horrible. So we need to find safe and effective heartworm preventative. It's a real deal. For cats, if they get heartworm disease, there is no treatment, zero. So prevention becomes a real important aspect. Fortunately, cats don't get heartworm as much as dogs do because they're not the natural host, but they do get it. And when they do get it, oftentimes it is fatal. So we have to look at that and go, do I want to, if I live in Florida or an area that has a lot of mosquitoes, do I want to risk my cat or dog to contract this problem? Or do I want to use as safe as a preventative as I can, and I consider ivermectin extremely safe, then I want to do that. And on the flea and tick side, then also we have safer products that aren't loaded with all the extra stuff. I definitely stay away from all the chewables because they're just egregious in how much nasty they put in there. So single modality, try to get the safest product possible, but do the other things as well. Because if we take care of the terrain, we are designed to withstand a little bit of toxin. We just can't overwhelm the body with so much toxin that it finally spills over the top of the cup.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're almost out of time, and I want to make sure people know where to find you. And I selfishly need to know your food line and what I'm going to be giving my pups. And can people work with you
Yeah.
from around the country?
I actually work with people around the globe. So I just spoke with the lady today. She was in Germany. And okay, I got to tell the story real quick. So she called me to get a consult. She took my Empowered Pet Parent course. And once people take the Empowered Pet Parent course, I can do consultation with them. Because remember, I can't give medical advice without a client-patient relationship. So she called, and her dog has cancer, and we were going over all the basics that she learned in the course. Ironically, she has a pet company where she makes dog beds, and the material that she covers the foam in is that plastic, what is it, polyester, right? Kind of fabric. And so we're talking about microplastics, and I said, this is your universal message that says, because she loves her dog more than anything in the world. And I said, what if you change the covering to be either wool or cotton? And then you start educating people as to the importance of getting rid of some of the plastics, i.e. their bedding. And she was like, oh my gosh. So every opportunity that we experience is an opportunity for us to learn, to improve, to make the world a better place, to influence others, and to share that knowledge and love. So no matter what your circumstances are, no matter what challenge you're going through, it is a gift. You just have to see it as a gift and then be able to use it for your highest and best good. Now, my contact is drmarlenesiegel.com. So you just have to spell my name right. And that's it. And then from that hub, you can contact my hospital. You can take our online courses. You can go into blogs and articles. I have so much information out there that's for free. And then consultations. If you want to consult with me, you do have to take the Empowered Pet Parent course, because it's 3 hours of education. And I need people to be on the same page. We need to understand where we're starting from, so that when they come to me, I'm helping them with implementation. They're getting the education in a way that they can go back and review, because it is an overwhelming amount of information, huge. Yeah. And you can only absorb so much at one time. And then I help you implement it. And once you implement a few things, then you're ready to come for the next level and the next level. And you keep going, and you never get done learning. But this is the way to get started, one step at a time.
You are speaking my language. I feel like you're the animal version of me. And
I am.
I talk about, because it's all in alignment. The toxins, the diet, the emotional part, the way you view things, that the lesser of two evils type approach, and the education. And I also love, because this is what started my business, is my son's illness, which then was my overcoming it, was my aha moment that every challenge is an opportunity.
Yes.
And
it's a blessing.
It truly is. It was the biggest blessing. My business would not be here if it weren't for that situation that I had gone through. And those blessings just keep coming. And life is about challenges. It's not supposed to be easy, you guys, but you don't have to be overwhelmed. You put one foot in front of the other and take one step at a time, at a time, and with the guidance of people like Dr. Marlene. So thank you so much for being here. I have a feeling you're going to be back.
I hope so. We barely scratched the surface. Oh my gosh, there's so much more to share.
The emotional part, that's a whole nother thing. With the two personalities of my dogs. That is something I would love to dive into next time. So thank you for joining us and doing your work. And I will definitely have all of your links in the show notes and be reaching out myself. So thank you, Dr. Marlene.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, do we love our little pups and our animals even more after listening to Dr. Marlene? I sure do, and that's why I'm going to take even more of a conscious effort in what I'm doing with their food, their supplements, their exercise, their vitamin D. Before we go, I wanted to just touch on the supplements I give my 2 pups on a daily basis. That number 1 supplement I can't speak of. I can tell you what it does, but I can't name it, not on YouTube. They don't want to hear it. But what does it do? It kills bacteria, viruses, fungus, parasites. It's great for those ear infections, cleaning out the mouth, skin irritations. It is scalar enhanced, nano-sized, unlike any other of its kind in the world. Helps with the eye infections too. So that would be number one. Number two, I can name, and that's accelerated C60. It fights free radicals, supports the mitochondria, reduces inflammation, great for the energy, the brain clarity, the joint pain, helps with liver detox, skin and coat health to make them nice and shiny and bright. It does the same for us in our hair and sleep. I use it daily. I give it to my pups daily. So easy to give it to them. You just put a little bit on their food. That's all you need to do. 1/4 to 1/2 of a teaspoon in the meals. Number three is acceleradine iodine. Our dogs, our pups need iodine just like we do. It supports thyroid, not just thyroid and metabolism, but detox, energy, immunity. It clears out those halogens, the fluoride, the bromide, the microplastics and heavy metals. Arsenic is in the food now. We're hearing about arsenic, not just fluoride in the water, not just the pollution that we're breathing in, but it's helping, the iodine is helping detox all of those. And you can just put it in their water, 1 to 2 drops in the water, start slowly, and you can increase. And then number 4 is that accelerated cellular detox powder. I absolutely give this to them, especially after any anesthesia, any vaccine, any being put under or surgery, or if I know they've been exposed to stuff or eaten something that they shouldn't have. It binds to the toxins like the heavy metals, mold, radiation, endotoxins, gets it out of their body. They don't notice. You just put it on their food. No constipation, no issues, and they will take it down, no problem. It helps with the skin allergies, the digestion, stool balance. You can just put a little bit in their food. Next would be the Megaspore Biotic. Our dogs need a good, strong gut resilience, just like we do, right? It helps rebuild the gut microbiome after the antibiotics, vaccines, stress. Which dog doesn't have stress? And it helps with that leaky gut, digestion, allergies, inflammation. So those would be my top supplements for our little furry friends. I hope you enjoyed today. Let me know what you learned. Are you overwhelmed or were you enlightened about what you need to be doing for your pups? I learned a lot, and I really want to have her back and talking about the emotional aspect of our animals. So hopefully today gave you the tools and inspiration to take the next step for your little furry friend's health. And you can head to SaraBanta Health for more articles and more, and join the free group coaching on Telegram. Shop the favorite supplements that I just talked about at acceleratedhealthproducts.com. You can use coupon podcast10 for your first order. And if you loved what you heard today, share it with your friends that own some little animals. They'll learn. And also, it helps this podcast grow and help and reach more people like you. You can find me by searching Accelerated Health with Sara Banta on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, E360, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and over 100 different platforms. And remember, I'm live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So join me next time for more ways to unlock your health potential.